Well, speaking of the NFL, let's jump into the big story. Why I brought Mark Ellis on here, why he was gracious enough to come on the show is, we're both lifetime Redskins fans for quite some time. It's kind of hard to say the name, but we have to talk about the issue here. And that is all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Mark Ellis, there is a real wave of public sentiment to have the name finally changed. In our lifetime, I thought I'd never see the day, and now, and of course, Winston, as a Cowboys fan, you can chime in on this one. But Mark, I want to get your thoughts on this. So, tell me what your feeling is about this. Do you think it's going to happen for real, or do you think they're just kind of waiting this out because the Redskins released that statement, said they were reviewing the name change and going to go through this process, blah blah blah? What's your actual sentiment or feeling here, or reaction?
There's two things that are pointing me towards the direction of believing, knock on wood, that we are going to get a name change. And number one is that you can throw all the public sentiment at me you want, and it's great to see it. It means zilch to Dan Snyder. What does mean something to him are dollars. And the fact that FedEx wanted a name change and they're the sponsor of the field and a big corporate partner, the fact that Nike took the merch off their website and Nike has also requested it, that's what speaks to Dan Snyder's sentiment. Now, the other thing that lends some credence is not the statement the Redskins put out. It's not we're going to review the name change. I've heard that my entire life. Sure. What does is that there's people who are in the know, like Adam Schefter, who fully believe that a name change is going to happen. So that leads me to hope that they know something that is just not public yet that we don't know. I love Ron Rivera's stance on this, saying that he is actively working, in so many words, to find a suitable new name for the team. But I also have my doubts just because of living and dying with this organization my entire life. I just have not seen that kind of progress. And I'm going to go off on just a little bit of a rant here. So I apologize even to Cowboy fan Winston. But I'm just going to tell you all where I stand on this just so everybody is clear how Mark Ellis feels about this. I want a name change, and I've wanted it for a long time. I also believe that the original owner of the Washington Redskins, George Preston Marshall, and his wife, who wrote the song Head of the Redskins, I think that they were racist. He was the last owner to integrate, along with everybody else who was back in the times, but he still was the last one to reluctantly have to sign Bobby Mitchell. However, I do not think that the team adopted the moniker Redskins to be racist. I do not believe that is rooted in racism. The term Redskin was actually coined by Native Americans to help associate dealings when they had to either talk to white people or black people or whoever you're talking to. However, that name, as great as the history may be, no longer has the same connotation. That's what we're talking about today. We're not talking about how the name originated, that, it wasn't meant to be racist in the late 1800s, early 1900s. How does it sound in 2020? Does it pass the eye test, the ear test, and what is the connotation? It is not a positive connotation to say Redskin or to call someone a Redskin in 2020. And so as much as I love history, keeping the name feels a little bit like hoarding to me, where I've moved so much in LA, I have no attachment to any material possessions anymore. But there are others out there who keep every comic book who keep every baseball card in their mom's place, okay? And this is what we're doing. All we're doing is we're just clinging to the past because we feel like that is going to have some meaning. And I'll tell you this right now, John, you know this as well as I do. If they change the name to Red Tails or Warriors or Hogs or whatever it is, I'm not going to try to lock in onto one name I'm rooting for. I just want it changed. That is not in any way going to diminish any of the memories that I have at RFK Stadium, at FedEx Field, with my family, particularly with my dad and I, him teaching me life through the lens of the Washington Redskins. It's not going to change the run that John Riggins had. It's not going to change Doug Williams and what he did for an entire nation. It's not going to change what Mark Rippon did in his legendary 1991 MVP season. Doesn't change what Sammy Baugh did. Does not change what Sean Taylor did. This is not going to change any of your memories. All it's doing is ushering the team that we all love so much into a new era, and I think it is the right thing to do.
Yep, I couldn't echo your sentiments any more strongly, Mark. And yes, definitely deserve applause for that. Couldn't echo your sentiments any more strongly, my man. We will all have the memories. We will all remember the Super Bowls. We will all remember and for the sad ones that have only been born in the last 25 years, you'll remember the terrible 25 years for the most part of being a Redskins fan. Changing the name does not erase any of that. And people trying to put it into a political landscape have no concept of what's happening here. This is a slur. It needs to be changed. Done and done. There's no question that this needs to happen. And it has been quite some time this needed to happen. I remember in the 90s when I first started hearing about these protests, I had no idea. I'd always grown up with this idea that this was a proud organization, a proud name, a proud team. They fought. The logo is a strong face, very much not like, like the old Cleveland Indians logo with the big smile and the big eyes. Nothing like that. It was a very strong face. So in your mind, you just could delude yourself that this is a positive thing. But as you get older and you become more aware of the world, you understand that this can be hurtful to some people, and it doesn't have to be everyone. Everyone doesn't have to agree. Social change or right change does not have to have 100% unanimous vote on this. Are enough people offended? Are enough people hurt by this? Are businesses stepping in and threatening to take money from you? Are governments telling you we will not have you put a team or rather a stadium in our city until you change the name? Then it's time to change the name. And don't be foolish, all the people who are against this, to think that Danny hasn't already been planning this for quite some time. He's a businessman. There's a reason they went through that trademark stuff. They wanted to keep it. It's good PR for him and saves face with him for the people who want to keep the name. But there's no way he hasn't had some kind of exploratory commission, even if it's loosely official, exploring the possibility of changing the name and what names actually work. I just don't want us to go through what Abe Pollin did with the bullets and have like surveys and it's stupid names thrown up. Let's have something really strong to take the place and move on. Winston, you're a Cowboys fan. You're looking at all this happening. You're also, obviously African-American gentleman. You've seen this stuff going on and changes going on in our world so quickly over the last few weeks. What's your feeling about this one, man?
I mean, it's funny. As a Cowboys fan, that really has no credence on this whatsoever, because even if it was a completely different division, if anything, I feel like I always had the higher ground on the Redskins fans and everything else like that because of the name. Because I was like, at least I don't support an organization that's racist as fuck. Like that. So I would much rather that be gone and we could keep this like 100 and just about football. I would like to, before I really get on my thoughts on it, I would just like to say to Mr. Mark Ellis, I felt personally attacked when you were saying you're holding on and hoarding things you're like, every time I move in Los Angeles, I leave all my possessions. And I'm like, bitch, my mom literally gave me a bin full of like old stories when I was a child. I used to write about make-believe lands where all the superheroes live together in harmony and shit. Like, you just making me feel like a piece of shit. I don't appreciate that, but that's fine.
I have a little bit. I have a little bit of hoarding, but that one used to hang in my dad's study forever, and so that's like the one. Like when I moved today, it's really just that painting, and it's already the frame corner is already messed up. And I'm just like, I tell the movers, I'm like, hey, just make sure this is okay. And they're like, well, there's a nick in the corner. I was like, just don't hurt it further.
That's fair. That's fair. But I'm just of this mindset. I mean, there is something that we should obviously just address, the elephant in the room.
Oh,
we are at a it's nothing that anybody did. We are at a turning point in this country. We're going to make this decision. Are we actually going to stand for something and treat everybody with an equal round of respect? Or are we going to let that darker side of our soul, which has technically been the foundation of this country, be the thing that goes forward? Like, and you've seen that in how the responses to George Floyd, to Breonna Taylor, how you're seeing, like, for example, over the weekend, Jimmy John's had employees that decided to make nooses out of dough and pretend to hang each other and shit. You know what I'm saying? You're seeing the darkest part of the soul come out, because at this point, I guess in the same way that like you see if you're watching like a spy movie and if someone's got garrote wire, how they fight even harder and harder when they think they're about to like choke out and die. You're literally at the point where we're deciding. I mean, I guess I've got these rope choking metaphors in my head because of the fucking thing, but whatever. The point is, you see people fight harder when their back's against the wall and they feel like this is it.
Yeah.
So when the fact that we are calling out this racism now, you are seeing people lose their fucking shit. That's why people are screaming all lives matter and shit like that in defiance and stuff like that. You're seeing these random lynchings that are fucking happening because they're literally like, you're not going to take my way, like, fuck you. Yeah. Whether or not the racism at its core, but this idea that they can't just do whatever anymore is really freaking people out. Those are most of the people that are fighting the name change at this point. Because at the end of the day, this is just coming down to respect. You are literally having a group of people that says this is disrespectful for me.
For quite some time, by the way. This isn't
a long time.
This isn't SJW new territory. This isn't liberal snowflakes. This has been going on for 3 or 4 decades, and probably earlier than that. But 3 or 4 decades where it's been documented and followed, and you've seen the protests outside. You can go back and do the research. You'll find this. This has been happening for quite some time. It's only now picked up legitimate steam thanks to FedEx and Nike and other people involved in financial.
Which a lot of that has to do with, again, the era that we're in. That people do not understand, and it is heartbreaking. And in all honesty, I would much rather have George Floyd back than to have this be the catalyst to get there. But he has set off his passing has set off a chain of events that shit is just changing left and right. And this, that is the only potential silver lining, is the amount of things that are changing, and this being one of them. Then good. I hope you understand when I say good. I mean that as far as thank God that something is coming out of this.
Yeah.
So I've seen people come up with all sorts of stuff. I make the argument again for, like you said, it's about the memories, it's about the organization, about y'all have done. I say walk away from all native paraphernalia and or names. So people want to name it Warriors or stuff like that and try and keep fuck that. Don't do that. Just stay away from it. You could people have been mentioning the Sentinels, joking about the replacements. I actually don't hate that, especially because that's a strong name that kind of feels like that. People have said the Red Tails. I love that because that's giving homage to the Red Tail, the Black Air Fighting Force, the Red Tails that played in World War II, especially considering DC is known as Chocolate City. I feel like that would be an incredible homage to the large portion of that population in Washington, D.C. I feel like you have a chance to take, instead of something that's so disrespectful, put something mad respectful. You know what I'm saying? That's I think that there's, and yes, the Prince's Promise is murder. Yes, I understand it was the murder. What I'm literally saying was just that it had to happen for all this, but you guys understand what I'm trying to say.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And John, if I may, I feel like this issue, particularly to people who are diehard Washington Redskins fans, like John and I have been since birth, and the people who are steeped in that culture, and particularly the higher ups in that organization, what I think it would do the world good to realize is that you have been taught since birth that this is not only a good name, this is a name that honors tradition, and you're taught all these things. And while that may have been the intent originally, and I do believe that, things have changed, and it's been such a seismic shift that we have to be cognizant of that. And that if you're not learning from history, when you try to honor history and you don't learn from it, then you become that. And I don't want my team to become history. I want my team to be progressive and continue to move forward, but on and off the field, and to have my support going in to a new generation and hopefully to a new team name. So I think that this is a much more nuanced issue than people are giving it credit. I think it's a lot more complicated than something like the Confederate flag. But you look at the Confederate flag and you look at how so many NASCAR fans felt so betrayed by NASCAR because they couldn't bring their almighty flag to an event. And NASCAR said, we do not care. You are less the kind of fan that we want, and we would rather be appealing to a new generation of fans who do understand what progress is without erasing history completely. And with the Washington Redskins in particular, I'm not going to get hung up on what the name change is. I'm not even going to tell you that I think that they need to adopt something that is not in any way resembling Native Americans, because I think that you get into a very gray area where if you name the team Red Tails, white people have been very oppressive to blacks, just like they have to Native Americans for hundreds of years. And so I don't know if it's any more right for a white guy like me to wear a Red Tails jersey than something that is a Warriors jersey that's honoring Native Americans. So before I go too far down that path, I just want to remind everybody that this time in our life and in our world, it feels a little bit like I'm back at RFK Stadium, because my dad had nosebleed seats. You'd be way up there. And what was beautiful about it is that you could see a play unfold. You could see a deep pass, and you could see the receiver make a move and do a fly pattern or a post pattern. You could see the quarterback, and you could see what was going to happen, hopefully. And that's where we are in this country. You see what's going on. You see protests. You see slogans. You see hashtags. You see, hopefully, an administration that is starting to crumble. And you see a new world rising up. That's what we all hope and pray is happening. And is the Redskins changing their name going to be the biggest signifier of that? No, it's not. But it's going to introduce a whole new crop of fans to a team that they previously did not want to think about or associate with because of the name. So now, instead of everybody being born in the DMV area and going immediately to, well, Ravens sounds great, a lot better than Redskins, you can have a team that appreciates this history of the players on the field and the people on the sidelines and in the front office without having to deal with the constant BS that is associated with this archaic name. Get rid of this name, keep the team, keep everything else, move on, and let's be part of a good cause.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to add on to this, also ESPN reported this earlier today, 3 minority owners of the Washington Redskins are seeking to sell their shares in the team because they're, quote, not happy being a partner with Dan Snyder. The Washington Post was reporting this as well. They cited sources familiar with the deliberation, prominent businessman Robert Rothman, Dwight Scharr, and Frederick W. Smith, who combined make about 40 or own about 40% of the team. That's a massive number. They've hired an investment banking firm to undergo a search for possible buyers, one of the sources told the Post. So if this goes through, this is one step closer to someone else taking over this team from Dan Snyder. So that's also something to consider as well. This public sentiment is growing and people are jumping on top who maybe have been hesitating or not sure to make certain moves. Now these businesses step forward because like this is a bad deal for all of us. And once again, I'm going to tell you this, if you look at this in a vacuum, you're not looking at it correctly. I think Mark Ellis made a great point. This is a much more layered, nuanced, complex issue to explore.
And John, if I can just put a button on all this, I appreciate y'all going with my diatribe, but it's been like, this is like 39 years of just wanting to have this conversation with people who I appreciate and value their opinion, is that, like, look, when I wake up on the day that they announce the name change and they'll announce what it is, and I hope that I feel compelled to do some sort of video, even just like Instagram Live, just to talk about it and get my feelings out. Yeah. I cannot make the promise that I'm not going to get emotional, that I'm not going to shed tears, and that it's not just tears of joy. That's going to be part of it because finally we've wanted this. But anytime there is something that you have cared about since you were born, anytime that you were born into a tradition, when there is a seismic change in that way of life, it's going to cause you to reflect on your entire life. And that doesn't mean that you're crying because, oh, I can't believe they got rid of the name that I grew up with. But it's just thinking about everything that has gone into that and everything that me and my family and the memories that my dad and I have associated. It doesn't mean that they're ruined. It means that it gives me an opportunity to look back and think, okay, these are the kind of values I was taught through this team. And now they've made me the man I am today. So with that perspective, I can take that and say, we should change the name. This is a good thing. Yeah. So if you are somebody who's saying, oh, well, I can't believe they're going to do that to my beloved tradition, I am the same as you. I promise you, okay? And I might be even a bigger fan than you. And not only am I okay with it, I know it doesn't change the history. I know it only makes the future better. So please get on board. Dan Snyder, if you're watching from your private jet that's over the Atlantic right now, just do us all a solid, man. We want to root for you. We accept that you bring Tom Cruise in the booth, and he's a curse of bad luck every time they show him on TV. Yes. But look, man, I'm tired of seeing a stadium that is half filled with the other team's fans. I'm tired of seeing a moribund franchise that people just get to pile on and say the Deadskins. I am tired of all of these last 30 years. You want to talk about tradition? Let's talk about the last 30 years when we've done nothing since 1991. Let's talk about that. So what are we really clinging to? It's time to hit the reset button. Let's do it, and let's do it while I still have eyes that can see a television set and cheer for my favorite team.